Hello everybody, welcome back to the Stacey West Preview Show. We're here today for Burton Albion away. We're luckily joined by Ed from the D3D4. Ed, how are you doing today? How you doing, mate? All right?
I'm not too bad. I'm glad we've got a day of EFL action after what's been going on elsewhere. It's just been all shambolic.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of touch on the Super League before we go on to Lincoln Burton. What a bit of a shit show. Is that right? Would you agree with that?
Oh, completely. It's just a massive money-grabbing opportunity. There was a time, I think when it first fully came out, I thought it might happen, but now I'm starting to think it's going to backfire because I think it comes down to the players, and none of the players seem to want it. And if you haven't got the players interested in going, the whole thing falls flat on its face because they want the best players, and the world's best players aren't there. What's the appeal to it? That's the way I see it at the minute.
How do you think it's going to sort of affect the likes of Lincoln, the likes of Burton, in the third tier probably next season? Could we see, for example, Erling Haaland line up in the yellow of Burton rather than the yellow of Dortmund?
We can dream. No, I think there's all this talk about the 6 clubs potentially getting removed from the Premier League, which is what they'd want, and that would affect things. The big part of the Premier League's income through TV revenue is those 6. They are the 6 most commercially high-profile clubs, the ones that most people watch, and then that money is distributed down into the divisions below. And if you lose those 6, you do see a cut in the budget, so it would affect things down the pyramid certainly as well.
Also, just sort of off football, how are you finding lockdown and the potential of being back at the Pirelli next season? I know we sort of spoke about this last time that lockdown. It appeared that we'd be going back at the start of this year. Not happened. Are you letting your hopes get up for a potential return?
Yeah, I'm feeling confident that we'll be back in by the start of next season. Yeah. I know there's talk. I think there might be a chance of some in the playoffs, which would be good for the teams to get in there. Not that I'm bothered about that, because obviously Burton aren't going to be a part of it. But no, I'm feeling pretty confident that by the time next season, which I think is early August, we should all be back in stadiums, if not full capacity, then at least some form.
Yeah, I think you sort of saw in the FA Cup semi-finals this weekend, didn't you, that it can really work. And a lot of clubs, I'm not sure how Burton have gone about it, but Lincoln definitely have sort of made Sincil Bank COVID safe. How have Burton done something sort of similar to the Pirelli?
They've been brilliant with COVID. They made it a vaccination centre. They've been right at the heart of the community throughout all of it. So they've been excellent. And that it's a stadium, like a lot of the stadiums in the low leagues, you can organise that. It's good to social distance in there. There's terracing on 3 sides, seats on 1 side. So it's very easy to spread people out if needs be for a limited capacity.
Let's talk about the football then. Burton at the minute. Like if they had got their act together at the start of the season, then you'd be where we are. What literally just what's happened? What's happened since Jimmy Floyd's come in? You boys have been nothing short of sensational.
Well, it's basically gone back to what it was in his very successful first spell, where he built a team built around a solid base that was always able to find a way to win games. And they've come back to that. And I agree, if this had been, hindsight's a wonderful thing, of course, but if this had happened earlier in the season, we could well find ourselves higher up in the table. I think since they've come in, I remember the assistant Dean and Mamre putting out, they're top of the league on PPG at the moment since the start of January, I believe. It's been phenomenal what they've done. I don't think anyone really saw this coming. You kind of hoped that maybe they could get themselves out of that sticky situation they're in and compete in the bottom 4 and maybe get out there at the end. And they look like they're going to do that well before the end of the season now.
Yeah. And just on Jake Buxton, obviously, I think he was relieved of his duties after the game against Lincoln in December.
It was the game after that against Wigan.
Yeah, so he was relieved sort of the week after. Was that the right decision then to let Buxton go? Obviously, he had quite a big emotional connection with the club he played for them. Was it the right decision?
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of people who wanted it done before that, to be honest, before he even played Lincoln. It's a terrible shame. There were a lot of mistakes made in the first half of that season. The main one for me was that it was just him. There wasn't, you as a young manager, you want that really experienced head alongside you to lead you through the early starts of what is a difficult job. He didn't have that. It was basically him in charge of a team with no senior manager experience before that. And it was always really set up to fail, unfortunately. Mistakes were made with some of the recruitment as well. Players that just weren't up to the standard needed to stay in this division. But thankfully, they managed to come back from that working the second half of the season. In terms of Buxton, I'd love to see him get an opportunity somewhere else, somewhere further down the pyramid, give him an opportunity, because there's no reason why he couldn't be a good manager. It was just unfortunately set up to fail for him in the first half of this season.
Given your expertise in League Two, I see it all over Twitter. What sort of club do you think in League Two should take a punt on Buxton?
I don't know. It's difficult. There's still a bit of me that thinks he's going to go back to Clough at Mansfield, because he never retired as a player. He was always down as a player manager, not that he'd ever play himself. So I kind of wonder if Clough might take him under his wing for a couple of years, which would be really good for his development. He's got such a good relationship with Nigel Clough, so it wouldn't surprise me if he went to Mansfield in some sort of coaching role the next year or two.
Mansfield is a swear word on this podcast, Ed. So you
have to bleep that out then.
So when Buxton was sacked, was Jimmy Floyd the first person you wanted to walk through the door? Because there were quite a few high reputation managers out there that were available, like Danny Cowley and Paul Cook. Was Jimmy Floyd at the top of your list?
On an emotional level, yes, for all of us. The problem was Hasselbank's first spell was between 2004 and 2015. He went off to QPR, didn't work out. I mean, QPR at the time were not in a good state. It was not really going to work out for anyone. His time at Northampton, I really thought was going to work out. That didn't either. From what I understand, they were supposed to be accompanied by significant foreign investment, which never happened. And then that affected how easy he could be in the transfer market. And it basically meant Northampton never really got to see the version of Hasselbank I thought they were going to get. So his two jobs since leaving Burton really had affected his way as a manager. And he'd been out of management for 2-3 years, I think, at the time before he came back in. So as much as people would like to have seen him back, we were unsure about how good he would actually be. And on top of that, the first time he'd been accompanied by David Oldfield as assistants, and the two of them really collaborated well together to form that success. And David Oldfield is the manager of Oxford City at the moment, who was doing really well in the National League South before they completely voided that season. He wasn't going to leave there for Burton anytime soon. So it was always a case, if Hasselbank was coming back, I was going to want someone good alongside him. And he's got that in Dino Mamria, who is a very proven manager at this level, has a really good reputation for taking over sides that are deep in trouble and getting them out of it. He's done it with Northwich Victoria, he's done it with Stevenage, done it with Oldham, done it with Southport, and he's coming to Burton. And I think he's a really big part of this that still doesn't get given enough credit for it, really. I always, since day one, have said it's Hasselbank and Mamria, not just Hasselbank on his own that's doing this, because I don't really believe Jimmy would have done it without him, to be honest.
Because Dino has been a man, you mentioned there Stevenage and Oldham. He was, I think we come against when we were in League Two. I think we came against Dino at Stevenage. I seem to remember.
He did really well at Stevenage.
He got a solid point against us. With Elias Chair played for Stevenage at the time.
Oh, he was scoring every week, wasn't he?
He run down the touchline like he'd won the World Cup. But I think that's just his sort of style, isn't it? Obviously, Dino. Then what sort of changes have they made to the Buxton era? How have Jimmy Floyd and Dino changed it?
Well, the main difference is solidity at the back. That's the main thing. There's been a lot of input from the transfer market, which has certainly helped bringing in a squad that I would definitely say is better in terms of overall quality than it was in the first half of the season. But there's already a sense they've got so much more defensive structure. They really limit the amount of high quality chances in the box you can create, because they are normally sat a bit deeper. They're happy to see you put crosses in because they can deal with them. They've got two deeper line midfielders in front of there that cover every blade of grass, and they can commit to the attacking phase as well. You have the wingers dropping back into sort of auxiliary wing-back roles out of possession to then spring through on the counter. And then a number 9 and a number 10 that are a bit more technical or a bit more energetic that can hold up the play and distribute out to others. And it's a team that probably doesn't have much of the ball, probably plays a bit direct, might not be that pretty on the eye, but it's been proving really effective so far this season against teams. And they've had the arrival of a young fullback, Tom Hamer, who used to be at Oldham Athletic. Yeah. Dino works with him there. He's got a very dangerous long throw, which Burton are making fantastic use of at the minute. They've really become, in some ways, a set-piece team, one that really provides a great threat from corners, throws, and free kicks. And that's where a lot of their goals have come from recently, to be honest.
And do you think, because Burton have been on this such good winning run, they're not getting criticised for their style of play? You know how Gillingham have been in recent weeks. I know
they're getting criticised.
Matt from Gills and the Blood fans, Matt from Gills and the Blood TV spoke to me at length about it, about the criticism that his side get. But are Burton sort of playing the exact same way, just a little bit more under the radar because it's not Steve Evans?
Oh, no, they still get criticism because that's what people do. People are just really immature about it. They think you've got to play nice football, and if you don't deserve any praise, which I've never been in favour of. If you've got the players to play direct football like Gillingham do, and they do it brilliantly, and it's been really effective for them this season. And the people who complain about it, to be honest, are just bitter about the results. That's the way I've always felt with that. You play to whatever means you work. If that means you play direct if it wins. If it loses most games, you've got an argument. But if it's picking up 3 points most week, go ahead and do it. That's what I always say.
That run then that you've sort of been on since Jimmy sort of took over, you've taken quite a few scalps in that sort of time. I know you beat Hull at home. That was one that we were really excited about because we went top of the league at the time. I think I even messaged you. How's it sort of been to be on that sort of run? Because even we've not experienced a run like Burton had been on.
Well, I think, like I said before, no one saw this coming. Nobody, because he took over at the time. I'm trying to look something. I think they were 4 adrift of 23rd, down at the bottom. They were 13 points from 22 games. And the idea at the time was thinking, right, first job, close that gap to 23rd, get back into the mix with the teams down the bottom. Probably knowing the bottom 4 will end up rotating between being in and out of it for a while and maybe be lucky enough to get out of it at the end of the season. There was a lot of us who were kind of already prepared to thinking, all right, we'll take these 2 in League 2 next season because they're building towards that. But the winning, it's ridiculous what's happened. It's just ridiculous. In some ways, he's doing better than his first spell. And in his first spell, he took over a side that was up towards the top of League 2 table that looked like a team that could earn promotion and just took them onto that. He's taken over a side that was completely shot of confidence, brought in some new players, and they just look so good, particularly away from home where they still haven't been beaten yet, playing in their quite nice platinum kit, which I know my D3D4 co-hosts aren't really a fan of, but I actually really like that kit. They've been brilliant away from home, and they've just got this real knack of pulling off scalps. They've been a bit more suspect at home. It's a bit more easy to compete with them, I think. I wonder, and maybe part of that is to do with the pitch, possibly something to do with that. It is a bit weird that they're not quite as effective at home as they have been away, perhaps because naturally away from home you expect to have less of the ball, and they work better with less of the ball, perhaps is the case with that. But no one saw this happening, what they were doing. Nobody at all.
Do you think it was the January recruitment that sort of helped massively? I think you signed some really good players in that period. Taylor from Wolves was one that was obviously was it Grimsby? You had Danny Rowe, a player, massive emotional connection to Lincoln supporters, and then who was the one I was going to mention? Oh no, Danny Rowe was the one I was really thinking of. Oh, Ryan Broom from Peterborough, another massive. How have those sort of recruits been for you so far?
To be honest, that January window is probably the best I can remember since I started supporting this club. It was so effective. There was a clear sense from the off, we're bottom of the league. We needed a window like this and we're getting it. That's what we got. And the best thing about it as well was the signing of players. The permanent signings of people like Johnny Smith, Tom Hamer, Terry Taylor, young players on long-term deals that were going to be good for the club, whether they stayed in League 1 or whether they dropped down to League 2. There was always a sense with that, and they were bringing in a lot of quality. People like Josh Earl, a left back of the Preston North End. Hayden Carter's probably been the signing of the lot, a centre back from Blackburn Rovers. Danny Rose, you say at the time, I love him. I remember I was watching him last week against Plymouth Argyle. He's so fluid on the ball, the way that he can drift between central and wide areas. Technical ability as well, even though he's still a bit left-footed to me. It still seems like he wants to lead with his left a lot, but every time you back him one-on-one against a player to cause a problem. And I guess really his injury record is probably the reason he's at Burton right now. If we're honest, he's had a bit of a niggle with injuries since he's been here, but he's come back and he's someone who's so effective in that number 10 role or outright. Ryan Broom has taken a bit of time to get going. He got a delight for him to get a late equaliser against Plymouth Argyle. Was it last weekend or was it midweek? No, it was the weekend, It was the weekend, yes. So off the mark for him. He's had a bit of a difficult time this season in League 1 with going to Peterborough and not really working out there in terms of being kind of second fiddle there. Come to Burton, he's been used mostly on the right, and there's hopefully he can still contribute. Every signing that's played really has contributed in one way or another. They've all contributed to this to create a team that looks good. I still wouldn't say mathematically or in terms of looking at the overall squad, I wouldn't say this is a team that I'd expect to be in the form it is. And credit to that goes to the managers for the system they put in place. But this is certainly a side that you would not look at and think that's a bottom 4 team. You would not think that at all with them.
And from an outside sort of perspective, looking into Burton, you saw the amount of players coming in the building in January. You sort of you went what on earth are they doing? What is happening? Because they've literally signed like a whole new team. But when you think about it, when you watch them in the first half of the season, it was needed, wasn't it?
It was. There were some, you know how it is when you're down a relegation battle. There's a lot of people who go, the whole team is rubbish. Everyone's dreadful. Get rid of them all. There were some that were performing. Kane Hemmings was still getting amongst the goals. Lucas Akins is probably having his weakest season, but he still has significant attacking output. Boswick, I always felt was going to contribute to this. I did. I know there were some people who weren't that keen on him, but I think a big part of that was that the system we were playing in the Buxton was just leaving him so defensively exposed a lot of the time. And he's come back and had real solidity. And the threat he provides from off Tom Hamer's throws, he's an absolute monster in the air, as you guys will know. Contributed to a pair of goals, I think, since the turn of the year, which is brilliant for him. Vital part of the back line now alongside Hayden Carter. And it's like I say, it's just how it is when you're down the bottom. You look at a lot of people look at players and think that they're all terrible and none of them are their level. It's just about being in the right system and making the best use out of them, which is what Hasselbank and Mama have been able to do with them.
And you touched on Bozzy there. Obviously, Bozzy and Erds both have really good connections to Lincoln. You know, I watched the video we did last time before the game at Central Bank, and you sort of said that the back line was just far too old and they were not mobile at all. We sort of saw that in that game, didn't we? But in terms of Bozzy and Erds specifically, how are they been getting? I know you spoke about Bozzy there, but how about Erds? Because he seems to be a bit out of the team at the minute.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame with Erdley. Came in, I was quite excited at the time because I knew how good he had been, particularly set piece threat. And you had the nickname of the postman, didn't he?
He did,
if I remember right. He did, yeah, through his deliveries. I think part of the problem was that he was playing this team that had such an isolated striker. He was basically relying on him to pick him out from out wide into the box, and it just was difficult. He's gone on loan to Barrow down in League Two, and he's doing well for them. He's been playing the sort of wing back role or a centre back role as part of their 3-5-2, helping them to survive. I would probably say it's his level now, to be honest, League Two. I'm not sure I can see him handling League One anymore, could depend really on what system he goes into. So I'd imagine he will probably leave the club. I think he was on a 1-year deal anyway, so he'll probably move on to another division. It's a bit of a shame about Erdley. I was hoping for something there, but Boswick, I think, has been quite revitalised, really, under Hasselbank and Marbury. Looks like someone who can maybe still contribute into next season.
And then, obviously, we're talking about it. It's tonight, isn't it? The game of the Pirelli. Yeah. We're recording a little bit late, but never mind. How are you sort of expecting it to go? You said Burton liked to sort of suck up, the opposition and then hit them on the counter. Can you see that coming to much effect tonight?
I don't know. It's like I've said before, like if this was at Sincil Bank, I'd probably be fancying Burton now because they look so good on the road. And at home, they've looked a bit more vulnerable, particularly against sides that are around them. When they played these teams up the top, like Hull and Peterborough, they've competed pretty well, although Sunderland did quite well see them off. Sunderland are probably put in the best display against them this season. Lee Johnson was very clever with his tactical shift last minute, which really caught Burton out, and they made use of second phase set pieces to win that. I don't know. I'm still really terrified at Lincoln front line because I think you've got better. Morgan Rogers, I absolutely adore.
Me too.
Adore him, Brennan Johnson. I still think Anthony Scully goes way under the radar with you lot because of who's around him. I just love the whole side. And I remember a couple of weeks ago being quite worried about you guys slipping out the playoffs, and now I'm not so sure. I think the return to fitness of a lot of your players is really going to help you out to the end of this season. You need the points more than we do, to be honest. That's the main reason for it. Like Hasselbank's mindset is still he's going to give it everything because he wants that mathematic confirmation, and they haven't got it yet. They could tonight if they get the win. The win pretty much secures it, so they'll want that. But I think my mindset is, to be honest, as bad as that is, I don't actually mind if they lose this. And I kind of think they will. Because we're playing against a side that just has more on the line at the moment. I don't know. Like I say, they played teams up this part of the table before at home and beaten them. But I really don't know. I don't want to sit on the fence and say a draw because that's a bit of a cop-out, I think. But I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if Lincoln want this just because I feel like they are in really good momentum at the minute with the last couple of wins. And I kind of feel like they might be able to beat them still.
Yeah, we had Kaz from the Gascast on last Saturday, and she was sort of saying the exact same thing. Oh, Bristol Rovers are in a right absolute state. We're setting us up to fail. And thankfully, we got the win there. But we'll go for 2 score predictions from you, Ed. Head and then heart.
Oh, head and heart. Okay. They both say the same, to be honest. 2-1 Lincoln.
Thank God for that.
To be honest, they really say the same thing. I say, I don't know. I think they can still, to be honest, mathematically secure safety if they lose. It really depends on what happens down below them, and they're not even the team directly below those 6. They've got Shrewsbury between them at the moment, who could potentially maybe overtake them, depending on what happens. I don't know. I'd like them to win it. Obviously, you do. You want them to win every game, but I just feel Lincoln need this more. That's the way I feel with it, because Burton have still got 5 or 4 more. I think they've still got 4 more to play after this, including games against Wigan down there, who are in decent form at the moment. They've got to play Fleetwood, and then they've got to play Oxford United on the last day as well. I just feel like Lincoln need this more, and that could make them motivated high. I'd expect a fairly solid defensive performance from Burton, but if you can recreate similar to what Sunderland did and make use of these second phase set pieces, which have caused a lot of problems to Burton, particularly at home, I think you might be able to see them off.
Well, if you could do us a favour and just beat Oxford, not only to take the mick out of James, but to stop them from scaring the living daylights out of us would be massively appreciated. Thanks for coming on again, Ed. Your insight is incredible. Your level to detail is fantastic. So where can Lincoln sort of fans find you on social media? Just tell us a bit about what you do as well.
Yeah, you can find me on my Twitter account. That's at Edward_W97, all lowercase. I focus a lot around League Two, mostly. I talk about League One quite a lot because we have a vested interest in the lower leagues, as we all do. I focus quite a lot on League Two, so I'm getting heavily invested. I'm going to be watching Colchester United, Southend United tonight, Essex Derby, which has basically got Football League status on the line, pretty much. If Southend don't win that. So it's a pretty important game. Some people are saying it's the most important Essex derby for years.
They're going to broadcast it around the world, aren't they? As what you said on the podcast.
Although it's probably ending 0-0, so just brace myself for a 0-0 and quite an ugly game. But yeah, I focus mainly around League Two. I do dabble into League One quite a lot. It's all fun. I'm looking forward always to when the summer window comes about and you can talk about players moving between clubs, because it's always good to see what happens. And I imagine Lincoln, with their smart recruitment, are going to be really eyeing up some of those players in League Two this season.
Do you want to plug the podcast as well whilst you're here?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a podcast called D3D4 Football. It's organised by my friend James. Chris is and also co-host. We go through the results in League 1 and 2 every week, talking about them in depth, talking about how we feel each club's going to handle with their season coming up. We're almost at the end of it now, and then we've got the most exciting part of the season, which is the playoffs. It's always the best part of the season to me. That I can't wait to get that going. And yeah, if you're a Lincoln fan, you should be heavily invested, because James is a massive Michael Appleton fan and he can't stop talking about them. So he'll talk about Lincoln until the sun goes down. That's right.
Well, it's an excellent podcast. Lincoln fans, I expect you to go over and listen to it. But thanks again, Ed, for coming on. Massively appreciated. And may the best team win tonight. We'll see you for another preview later on in the week as well. Thank you for watching.